Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating network of government agencies and NGOs tasked with a truly monumental job, protecting India's vast and incredibly diverse biological heritage. We're going to unpack the specific institutions that stand right on the front lines of environmental defense.
It's a question definitely worth asking, right? I mean, we constantly hear about endangered species, threatened habitats, and polluted rivers in the news. But who is actually on the ground legally tasked with solving these massive ecological problems day in and day out? It's really easy to look at nature conservation as this broad, abstract concept, but in reality, it requires a highly structured, organized ecosystem all of its own.
Before we get into the specifics, there's one crucial term we really need to nail down: statutory bodies. A lot of the key guardians we'll be discussing today fall under this category. This means they aren't just advisory committees passing along polite suggestions. They are authorities established by a specific government act. This status gives them serious legal and institutional weight to regulate, enforce laws, and drive real, actionable change across the country. Okay, let's map out India's conservation landscape. We'll explore this through three distinct thematic domains. First, pioneering animal welfare. Second, defending India's wild species. And finally, reviving lakes and rivers.
Section 1. Pioneering Animal Welfare. The Dawn of Institutional Protection.
So our journey actually begins with a groundbreaking global first. Back in 1960, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act was passed. But, laws need action, which is why just 2 years later, in 1962, the Animal Welfare Board of India, or AWBI, was set up. Miraculously, this was literally the very first animal welfare board established by any government anywhere in the world. It served as a statutory advisory body to promote animal welfare laws. Of course, institutions don't just build themselves out of thin air. Behind this monumental step was Srimati Rukmini Devi Arundale. Her dedication was absolutely profound. She didn't just help found this Chennai-headquartered board. She actively guided its activities for nearly 20 years until her demise in 1986. It's a really powerful reminder of how dedicated leadership can shape a nation's conservation policy. Moving on to Section 2, defending India's wild species, from zoos to biodiversity to crime fighting. Over the decades, India really had to expand its institutional reach to tackle the deep complexities of wild species protection. And this wildlife defense, it operates on vastly different battlegrounds. Take these two Delhi-based authorities. On one hand, you have the Central Zoo Authority, or CZA. Created in 1991 through an amendment to the Wildlife Protection Act, the CZA steps in to oversee zoos across the country. They hold the power to grant recognition, meaning a zoo can only operate if it meets the rigorous norms and standards prescribed by this authority. Operating in a completely different sphere is the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. Constituted years later in 2007, this statutory body complements state governments, who are the primary enforcers of the 1972 Wildlife Protection Act. The WCCB exists to aggressively back up enforcement agencies in the fight against wildlife criminals.
Meanwhile, if we step back to look at the broader biological picture, we have the National Biodiversity Authority, or NBA, established in Chennai in 2003. This statutory and autonomous body was built to perform a robust, step-by-step set of functions for the government. To achieve its mission, it acts in a facilitative capacity, a regulatory capacity, and an advisory capacity. But what exactly are they regulating and advising on?
Well, the NBA was established specifically to implement India's Biological Diversity Act of 2002. But it's not just about locking nature away behind a giant fence. They are tasked with a really complex balancing act, conserving biological resources while simultaneously allowing for their sustainable use and ensuring that any benefits arising from those resources are shared fairly and equitably. It's a highly sophisticated approach to managing a nation's natural wealth. Now, the government obviously doesn't work alone in this massive endeavor. Non-governmental organizations play a huge role. Take the Wildlife Trust of India, an NGO founded in 1998 and based in Noida. They operate with a highly collaborative aim. Their goal is to conserve nature, specifically focusing on endangered species and threatened habitats, by working directly in partnership with local communities and governments. It just goes to show that true conservation requires a coalition. Let's dive into Section 3, Reviving Lakes and Rivers, Protecting Aquatic Ecosystems. Now we're shifting our focus to the aquatic side of things and the massive authorities created to rescue polluted waters. The year 2001 marks a really pivotal start here. This was when the Ministry of Environment and Forests began implementing the National Lake Conservation Plan. This initiative was designed for a very targeted purpose: the conservation and management of polluted and degraded lakes located specifically in urban and semi-urban areas, recognizing the intense ecological pressure these particular water bodies face. But by February 2009, the scale of aquatic action exploded with the constitution of the National Ganga River Basin Authority, or NGRBA. Going from targeted urban lakes to a massive multi-state river system, that's a total shift in scope. Formed under the Environment Protection Act of 1986, this is a massive, coordinated body. Because the river as vast as the Ganga crosses so many borders, the NGRBA is designed to coordinate directly between the center and the states. And underscoring its importance, its nodal ministry is the Ministry of Water Resources, River Development, and Ganga Rejuvenation.
To tackle a river basin of that massive scale, the NGRBA operates as a planning, financing, and monitoring body. It possesses both regulatory and developmental functions. These broad functions directly fuel its main goals: effectively abating pollution, comprehensively conserving the entire river basin using a unified approach, and crucially, doing all of this while maintaining sustainable development needs.
So looking at this overarching timeline, you can really visually trace the incredible evolution of India's conservation ecosystem. We went from pioneering animal welfare in the 60s with the AWBI, expanding to zoos and biodiversity in the 90s and 2000s, to eventually managing massive river basins with the NGRBA. It's a clear trajectory of a nation building specialized, powerful tools to protect its environment over time.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. We've seen how this incredible network of statutory bodies and NGOs has been built up over decades. But as modern threats grow more complex, how will India successfully balance its pressing need for sustainable development with the absolute necessity of ensuring the survival of its protected habitats? How will this complex ecosystem of guardians adapt next to ensure the lasting future of India's natural heritage? It's a delicate balancing act for sure, and one that's going to define the future of the nation's ecology. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep exploring and keep learning.